Alright, David Harry here, and in this video I'm going to show you what for me so far is the ultimate gaming desktop setup for an iPhone 15. Now what I'm going to do is run through the entire setup and explain how it's all plugged together and what I'm using, and then I will end the video with a full game of Warzone Mobile as well. But just a few things before this. So first thing is, the main component that I'm using here is this dock system by ACASIS. Now I will go into some detail about this shortly. However, I just want to make it clear that I was sent this dock in exchange for a review, although no money has changed hands. Now the second thing that I need to point out here is super important. This particular setup using a USB-C docking system does not work properly with the iPhone 15 Pro Max or the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, that is not because it's a problem with this dock. What I have found is that I've got like loads of USB-C docks and none of them work properly with the iPhone 15 Pro Max or the 15 Pro. However, they do work with the 15 and the Plus. Now, just one quick thing about that particular point. I've been talking directly to Apple support through email and phone calls, and they've reassured me that this is definitely something that they are looking into. Now, as soon as there's anything more positive to report about that, I will definitely do a video on this channel about that. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is to do a bunch of close-ups and show you how this is all put together and what components are used and how it's wired up, and then I will come back and do some gameplay on Warzone Mobile. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is to show you all of the hardware to do with this particular gaming setup and how I go about connecting it all together. Now the first thing that I'm going to show you is this, which is an ACASIS USB-C docking station, and this is the DS-7A15. Now this is the most important part of all of this setup here, and I will actually go into some detail in a moment and do some close-ups of the dock. But what we get in the package are a USB-C to USB-C cable, which is a 10 gigabits per second cable, and this is to connect the dock to whatever host device you're going to use it with. Obviously, in this instance, it's going to be the iPhone 15. And then what we have got here is a stand as well. I will show you that shortly and how that connects. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just quickly show you the dock. So that's the back of the dock there, and then that's the front of the dock. Like I say, I'm going to do some close-ups and explain everything in a moment, but that's just a quick look at how the dock looks like. And then with this stand here, we simply just slide the dock into it, and then we have got a base for the dock here. So the dock could either just kind of like lay flat like that on your table, or you could put it on the stand, which is what I do. Then it can stand up on a table like that. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is get the camera in closer and I will go over all of the ports on the dock. So looking at the rear of the dock first of all, and I'm just going to run through all of the ports and explain what they are. So the first three ports here are all video outputs, and these are 2 HDMI and 1 DisplayPort. Now these are all capable of going up to 4K 60, and if you plug this dock into a compatible, say, desktop or laptop, then you can do things like extended desktops and like multiple video outputs and stuff like that. However, because we're on an iPhone here, we can only obviously use one output, and indeed if you were to say plug 2 cables or 3 cables into here, the only one that would be active would be the last one that you plugged in. So to be clear, you don't get like, an extended desktop on the iPhone. So what we do is just use any one of these sockets here to do our mirrored output. Now there is something about the actual arrangement of the video output that I will come back to shortly, but just moving on this side here, we have got 2 USB-A ports, which are USB 3, and these are 5 gigabits per second as well. Now below that we have got a 1 gigabit LAN port. Now this is absolutely important as far as my setup is concerned, at least, because this means that I get like proper low latency gaming because I'm plugged straight into my router via a cable, so that's really good. Now what we've got here is, which says PD in, this is our power delivery input. Now this particular dock can accept up to 100 watts as far as your external USB power supply is concerned. You don't actually get a USB power supply with the dock, so you have to have your own, but it will accept up to 100 watts as far as the power supply is concerned. So what will happen there, the dock itself will take some of that power and then it will use the rest of the power to start powering peripherals and then also to charge up whatever the host device is, as in this instance the iPhone. Now if we move over to this side here where it says USB-C in, this is actually the connection to the host device. Again, in this instance, it's the iPhone 15. So we would plug the iPhone 15 into there with the supplied cable that comes with the actual dock. Okay, so that's basically all the stuff on the back here. So looking at the front of the dock, and the first thing at the top here is the power button. Now, depending upon what you plug the dock into, some of the ports will be able to be used passively. However, for the likes of the iPhone, you are definitely going to need power. So obviously you will have to power on the dock here. Now below that, what we've got are a TF slot and an SD card slot. So basically micro SD and full size SD. Now these will go up to around 80 to 90 megabytes per second. So they are quite fast. Now opposite that here, we've got a PD 24 watt port here. So basically what this is a USB-C power port. So this can send power out to something to charge it. So you may have, say, another phone or maybe a tablet connected and you can actually charge it from that port there. However, that is also dependent upon the type of power supply that you plug in. So whether that's a PD power supply and also the amount of actual wattage that the power supply that you are using to plug into the dock is actually sending out. So just to be clear, although this is 24 watts, you would have to have, a powerful power supply plugged in order to get the full 24 watts, whilst you are also sending power to the other devices that might be connected to the dock as well. Now here we've got a combi socket, which is a TRRS 3.5mm jack socket, and that is for your headphones and your microphone. Now although I don't use microphones, I can definitely confirm that the headphone works here. And what's really great about the headphone output here is that the volume control on the iPhone will control the amount of volume coming out of the headphone port there, which is really good. Then what we've got below that is a USB 3 port. Now this particular one is obviously USB-A, but this will do 10 gigabits per second. And then the last two ports here are USB 3.1 USB-C ports, and both of these are also capable of 10 gigabits per second. Now just going back to the rear here, because there is something that I will have to explain about the video outputs here. If I plug any HDMI cables into either of these two ports here, the maximum that I'm getting out of it is 1440, so basically what some people call 2K. Now I don't know why that is, but if I go to the DisplayPort and use that as the output, I get the full 4K. So just to be clear, if you're only running on a 1080p monitor or a 1440p monitor, you'll be fine with these HDMI outputs here. If you are indeed using a 4K monitor, then the DisplayPort will definitely send out the 4K signal. However, we can also use the DisplayPort output here to send the 4K signal into a 4K HDMI monitor. And to do that, we just simply use one of these cables here, and this is a DisplayPort to HDMI cable, and this will allow the DisplayPort output from the dock to be plugged into a HDMI input on either a TV or a monitor, and then that will allow us to get the full 4K 60 going into any kind of HDMI monitor or TV. Now, there are a number of different cables that you could use for this, but this one here by Cable Creation definitely works, and this is the one that I would recommend. So just to summarize again for these video outputs here, if you are using a 1080p or a 1440p monitor, you can plug any one of these outputs into your monitor, whether that's HDMI or DisplayPort. But as soon as you go up to 4K as far as a computer monitor is concerned, you will either have to go DisplayPort out to DisplayPort in on your computer monitor, or you can use DisplayPort to the HDMI with that cable there, and then you can go HDMI into the 4K monitor. And then obviously if you're using a 4K TV, same thing again, just use this cable to go from DisplayPort here to the 4K HDMI input on a TV. And then obviously if your TV is only say 1080, then you can just use either of those two HDMI ports. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to show you how I go about wiring up everything here with all the cabling. Now, it is a little messy on the table here, as you can see. However, the one thing I would like to reassure you about is once everything is connected here, because all the cables are on the back of the dock, when the dock is then sat upright inside its base next to, say, your monitor, everything looks super neat because everything is at the back here that we're going to be using for this setup. So this is quite awesome. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is to plug in the power. And like I said before, there's the power delivery input. Now what I'm using here is just a 40-watt power supply. I'm actually using an official Samsung 40-watt power supply, and that is absolutely fine for my particular use. If you want to start kind of like charging other things off the dock, or you're going to be plugging a lot more other things in, so like hard drives and stuff like that, if you're doing say another configuration, then you'll definitely probably need like, you know, a higher rated wattage power supply. But in this instance, my one's fine for this. So I'm just going to plug that into the PD input. So there's my power plugged in. Now what I'm going to do now is just to connect my Ethernet cable, and unfortunately this is a really grotty looking Ethernet cable, but you know, it still works. So let me just pop that into this. That's the Ethernet cable in. Now as far as my video output is concerned, because I am going to be recording some gameplay at the end of this video, I need to be sending out 4K 60 but on HDMI, and the reason why is because I'm using an Atomos Ninja V to do the recording, and that only has a HDMI input. It doesn't have DisplayPort. So like I just said before, the way that I get 4K 60 out of here is to use the DisplayPort to HDMI cable. So that's exactly what I'm going to use here. So I'm just going to plug the DisplayPort end of that cable into the DisplayPort output there, and then of course, let's see if I can just get this in the shot, the other end of the cable here, which is the HDMI end. Let's see if we can see this here. This end of the cable here then just gets plugged straight into my Atomos Ninja, or indeed straight into my monitor. Now once that's all together, what I'm going to do now is to plug in this USB-C cable into the USB-C input, and then the other end of this cable will go into my iPhone. So that's all plugged in there. And then I'm going to plug this into my iPhone, and what we should probably see immediately is that the iPhone will be picking up some charge. Let's see. There we go. So straight away charging, which is really good. So right now what we have got is everything working as it should. And then the last thing to mention here, let me see if I can just pop this around, is the power button here is actually switched on. That was only switched on because it was resting on the table there. But if I switch the power button off there, then if I come back to the iPhone here, and if I just unplug the cable and plug it back in, we should see that it'll pick up the power again. There we go. Now, what's important to know here is that in order to get our video outputs and everything working, we definitely have to have the power button switched in there. Actually, there is one other thing that I forgot to mention just then, but it's actually good that I forgot to mention it because it allows me to show you something else. And what I forgot to show you was how to connect the headphones. However, what I'm going to show you first is what happens when you do set all this up. So what happens is, as soon as everything is all connected through to your TV or your monitor, obviously I'm using a monitor here, the audio will automatically be sent down the HDMI cable or the DisplayPort cable to the monitor. So if you just give me a moment, this won't be very loud. Okay, so we should be able to hear the game audio there. Hold on. There we go. Now, if I then plug my headphones into the headphone jack socket on the front of the hub or the dock here, listen to what happens. the audio gets cut off from the monitor, and I've just put my headphones up by my microphone here in case you were wondering what I'm doing, but as we can hear there, the audio is now being automatically redirected to the headphones. So just to be clear on that point, what happens is the last thing that gets plugged in as far as, say, HDMI or headphones, that is what takes control of the audio output. So just plug your headphones in last of all if you want the audio to come out of the headphones. And like I'd already mentioned before, the volume control on your iPhone will actually control the volume that comes out of the headphones, which is super convenient. And the reason why that's super convenient is because some of these types of setups don't do that, and you don't get any headphone control or volume control from the actual docking system. But in this way here, it definitely works. Anyways, that's enough talking, because I am dying to get into a game of Call of Duty here. So I will say my goodbyes and everything now and get straight into this game. So the last few things that I want to say here are, if you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and a subscription to the channel will be absolutely awesome. Now, there will also be a whole bunch of links in the video description below to the stuff used in the video, and there will be direct links to the ACASIS website as well, to where you can go and grab one of these docks. And there are also a bunch of other ACASIS products that I'm going to be using as well in some videos coming up, so keep an eye out for that stuff as well. Oh yeah, last thing actually, as I said before, once this dock is just sitting right next to your monitor like that, all the mess is behind it, all the cables, all the junk, so everything looks super neat. Anyways, that's me done with this. I need to get into a game of Warzone. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.
supply station costs are adjusted. Closing in. Gas inbound. Safe zone relocated. Gas is closing in. Remaining. Keep it up. Got gas inbound. Safe zone relocated. Gas is closing in.